At the end of your life, what will be your legacy? What will you leave behind for future generations? For the world, join the World Messenger, Izabela Lundberg, each week as she brings you a new distinguished guest from the business, sports, or entertainment world to share their success, their struggles, and their lessons. They will share their insights into current hot topics that affect everyone. Izabela facilitates an intimate, vulnerable environment to find the true value of humanity and real leadership. Are you ready for your legacy? The legacy that matters?
Nathaniel, thank you so much for agreeing to be a guest and be raw and real with audience, specifically as we're facing numerous challenges, aren't we? And sometimes people are not being as honest, transparent, first of all, to themselves, let alone to others. And we're going to depict and address another elephant in the room. And this particular series I chose to do starting in November, obviously till end of December, for multiple reasons. And I'm sure you can relate, and I would love to hear your perspective on, because I know that so many people are struggling right now. We're definitely on LinkedIn with the purpose to reach out to as many employees and employers, as well as solo entrepreneurs, and anybody that is in despair seeking a job or new opportunities and trying to figure out complexities of current times. We're hearing multiple things. We're hearing people getting laid off right before Thanksgiving. We're hearing people not getting enough notice, being mistreated. We're hearing so many crazy dynamics, right?
Yeah.
We're also seeing people struggling for over a year and a half to get the footing right with all the changes. But everything starts with us, right? And the elephants in the rooms are how we are reacting, how we're feeling, what is going on, and then how we can change the script, at least for things that we have control over it, right?
Yeah, absolutely. It's the stories we tell ourselves based on the events that are happening is actually the pain. That's the pain point. Marcus Aurelius, he says that very, very, very candidly, and he says it very profoundly. He says, look, it's not the external event that's the issue. It's your estimate of the event that's the issue that causes the pain, and that you have the power to revoke at any time. So we can actually pull away the meaning we've given to anything and revoke it and create a new story around the event and watch the event change based on the new perspective. And it happens instantaneously.
That is beautiful, and I love that. But for everybody watching and listening right now, I just wanted to tell you who Nathaniel is. Someone that I'm being in so many actual discussions and conversations on Clubhouse, who will show up and always give his stellar, the best A game as a speaker, as a coach, as a personal trainer, a consultant, educator, and mentor to many. Someone that really had a lot interest. I mean, painful journey, a lot of change, and lots to talk, and it's a living example of what's possible. Why we're tackling a different subgroup of issues that people are dealing right now with anxiety, with stress, with depression, with suicidal thoughts and despair. We're seeing also the other spectrum of that is part of the same root causes, which is anger, mistrust, hurt, betrayal, a lot of insecurities, and things that really position us early on during the childhood into such a different spectrum, right? Where child's supposed to be having fun and being in a loving, caring environment. Not fortunately, everybody had the chance. Right. So, Nathaniel, do you mind a little bit sharing your journey? What happened in your world that really puts you on this spiral, and how did you get out of it?
Wow, it was a dual spiral that got me into it and out of it. And I'll start with this. I was born in South Carolina, and I like to begin my story with that, because by saying that, I'm saying South Carolina with its histories of all of its traumas and the conquistadors that have come through with the Spanish situation happening and the British situation happening with all the colonizations that took place. So there's a lot of like rooted trauma and abandonment and mistrust. It's all there. A lot of it doesn't get talked about. Luckily for us, in the past few years, with all of the racial tension, a lot of the conversations have changed. So a lot of the things that were there have been unearthed. But my story is one of, it's very interesting. I'm appreciative of my story. It's no longer pain for me. It's a tool. And I was a pretty happy-go-lucky kid. I'd say from the age of 0 to about 6 or 7, just your normal kid. My dad was a mechanic. He was a, hands-on monkey. They call them grease monkeys, right? Hands-on guy, fix anything, Mr. Fix It. Nothing stayed broken. My mom was in the medical field, so she was in medical school as we were coming up as kids. So she wasn't home as much. We were latchkey kids. We got on the bus, we came home. But before all of that, around about 8 years old, I had a situation that happened where I experienced a very inappropriate relational contact with a family member of mine. And I'm saying it like that because I'm calling it what it is. It was an inappropriate sexual contact, not just molestation, because the term molestation just simply means to bother. But sexual molestation means to bother in a sexual manner. It means to move things and shift things about that kind of upsets the normal progression of how a child should be developing emotionally and sexually. So a lot of things at a very young age was sort of unlocked. My questions about things. At 8 years old, no child should know anything about the nuances of that particular interaction with another human being. A child should be outside playing with and throwing rocks and playing in the dirt and getting dirty and playing with balls and friends and things of that nature. But I had this thing that I could not tell anyone about because the conversation around it was, you got to keep this a secret. And it was that keeping it a secret that sort of, it was a seed that rooted itself in, okay, I can't talk to anybody. And if I did, no one would believe me. And that was a seed that was planted at that moment then, because that sort of contact, it opens up Pandora's box. It really does. It unlocks everything. I started feeling things that I didn't know what to do with. Like, okay, is this a relationship type thing, or what is this? Am I wanted, or is it just, was I filling a gap for the moment? And this sense of abandonment came over me. And I remember around about 9 years old when my dreams changed. After that event happened, it was about a year. I remember my dreams became more violent. I had very like vividly violent dreams, and I started becoming afraid to go to sleep because of the night terrors that I would have as time went on. Uh, for 30 years, I was afraid to go to sleep. It took me until almost 35 years old to be okay with going to bed at night. I would stay up just because I didn't want to have to scream myself back awake. And it was hard. It was hard to deal with, because here I am wanting to inspire people to live their best life and be on top of my game and show up well. And I don't want people to believe that I have this mindset that it's me against the world, because I felt like my entire world was ripped from me and I was abandoned. But I had to come to grips around about, I'd say, 30-ish years old, when my anger got the best of me. I started spiraling out of control, reacting to things as if something was happening to me, like I was always victimized, something was always wrong. I was responding to my children, to my wife, in a way that was inappropriate. It wasn't loving. It was love the way I understood it, in the form of abandonment, if that makes any sense. So I had to recalibrate Nathaniel. So I start help in therapy to get anger management. And I thought, maybe if I just deal with the anger, everything's fine. Nothing could be further from the truth. The moment I opened up the door to the conversation about anger was the moment that everything else I had buried for 30 years came back to the surface. And it was at that moment I realized that it's the deep things that we bury that actually are controlling how we narrate the world we live in. It's those things, those subconscious narratives are what's putting before us what we experience. And I say that because when I would come out of these night terrors, nothing would be there. I would open my eyes and I can see no people, no objects, no thing. And all I'd have to reset myself so that objects and people can be recognized, which let me know that the subconscious mind is creating things for it to have an interaction with the natural world. Otherwise, I don't have one. And my reaction to the natural world was based on a story that I was telling about the world based on an event that was a pain point. So
That is so powerful. If you don't mind,
go
just a
ahead.
second to break for that down further for us, for our listeners and people that are watching. Within, thank you so much for saying hello and being here with us, and
Yeah.
we appreciate you. If you
Yeah.
have any specific questions, please don't hesitate to share. But with Nathaniel, I mean, this is life journey. You're still in your 30s. You're very young, so this transformation happened recently,
Yeah.
and for a lot of people that's still working on. I mean, it's sad to see sometimes 55-year-olds that never worked on their childhood wounds and seeing them robbed from so much of their life.
Mm-hmm.
And they're overcompensating in certain aspects of life. So first of all, I want to kudo you for what you do and what you did in order to recognize that, because transformation is conscious effort that is happening daily.
Daily. Yeah.
And if you're not willing to put effort on individual level, on team level, or organizational level, it's not going to happen, right?
Absolutely not.
It has to
Absolutely
be
not.
the commitment.
Yeah.
Second thing I just want to highlight here, how important this is to be real about it, to understand, because it's so easy to manipulate a development of child and their little minds. And how many children are being held hostage as a result of that,
Absolutely.
right?
Absolutely.
And how much we see also sexual misconducts in a workplace today, adults to adults, right?
Yeah.
Not anymore
Absolutely.
adults to child, and that changed the dynamics. And reason why we're addressing these elephants again is because they're so relevant.
Yeah.
They're happening in our society more than they're reported, more than we wanted to talk about or recognize and acknowledge. And further we go by undercovering this, it's going to make a tremendous positive shift.
Absolutely. Absolutely. The more we're willing, it really takes a willingness. And you got to set the intention that says, I will become who I will become, but I will also do the work that it takes for me to get there, whatever that there is, whatever that point is, that target is, and be willing to settle into the stress of the process for, as the Japanese Zen art of archery would say, for the arrow to shoot itself. If you study Japanese Zen archery, you don't actually let the arrow go for it to hit the target. What you do is you pull the bow back and you become one with the tension in the moment. And while you're becoming one with the tension in the moment, you're also one with the target at in the distance. So the tension and the target and you are all one thing. You are arrow, bow, and target. And at the moment of integration of arrow, bow, and target is when the arrow lets itself go from the stress, because nothing launches without it. You try to launch a rocket without fuel, without an explosion, without time. You can't go down your road without stress. You get in your car and you turn that engine and you think the engine is just running. No, what's happening is timed explosions are happening in the engine to help bring about momentum. Otherwise, you go nowhere. And what I found in my own self is when I was unwilling to deal with the stuff, I I thought in my mind, I fooled myself into believing that I was moving forward when I was just burning out. I was just sitting there going nowhere, extremely fast and loud. So I was loud about everything and I was boisterous about everything. And I had this big old like ego thing going on and I wasn't doing anything at all. I wasn't making any progress. I was actually retrogressing, right? The word gress is a suffix. It's a Latin suffix, which means to move in a certain direction. Retrogress literally means to deteriorate. So I was falling apart and didn't even know it. And it took some really, really hard conversations with my family and some people that love us dearly to say, Nathaniel, you need help. And if you don't get help, you're going to self-destruct.
Wow, that is so powerful and so very true. And we see this again on the individual level, team, organizational, family. I mean, you name it, because it's also affecting different dynamics.
Absolutely.
Right? And we have here Joseph. I'm so glad, Joseph, you said this to lighten up things here and make Nathaniel smile, which I love that smile. You were spot on. Actually, he is doing voiceovers professionally, and he will be launching his own podcast. And so he will have his own show, because you're spot on. His voice is amazing, and also message is extremely powerful. So, Joseph, if you have any specific questions, don't hesitate to ask. We're also having Tarja here joining us from Finland. So great to hear your commentary. So it's so beautiful that you're here with us. I'd love to hear your perspective as well. And then Joseph is definitely reflecting on intention, feel, and change. And it's beautiful because guess what now? That we know can be positive and detrimental, right? It could be, I mean, it can be positive and very influential and powerful.
Right.
It can be negative and very detrimental.
Absolutely.
So the question is, what do we decide and which path we want to go? And then first of all, a lot of times we're getting people being angry and totally destructive, not only to themselves, but everybody around themselves.
Right.
Or extreme to point that they're so passive, totally numb with the pain, and they don't want to do anything, and they're just like a walking dead, right? You go through different stages and ranges. Your anger came to the level that you were like, oh my God, I'm really afraid what I'm going to do next. I'm getting out of control. What was the pivotal moment when you decided to seek the help? I know you have a gorgeous, beautiful wife. I know you have a gorgeous, beautiful son. So was it the stake of ruining your family? What was that moment?
That was it. We had one of the biggest arguments we had ever had in our relationship, and we ended up having to separate for 30 days. I left the home and went into like an extended stay hotel room, and I got back into Nathaniel. And I had to deal with, at the best of my ability, while going through some of the counseling sessions, to the best of my ability, deal with some of those inner issues that I had allowed to fester and I was unwilling to talk about. And I thought I would be strong enough. See, that's the illusion. I fooled myself into believing that I was strong enough to handle it. And I wasn't. It was tearing me apart, and it was tearing my family apart. So much so that for 30, and all it was 30 days, but those 30 days felt like years, because I was like, I'm not sleeping in my own bed. I can't see my son anytime I want to. This is a problem. And if I don't deal with it, I'm going to lose everything. And this is the part that, people see leaders show up in a certain way, and they see them on stages, they see them on podcasts, and they see them online, and they see the posts. And unfortunately, social media has abbreviated the processes amongst the leaders. They've shown what people what it can be, but they don't show the process that it took to get there. And this is
very true.
Go ahead.
Or sometimes falsely representing that they're in a better place than they are. And we know later on with scandals and issues and background story that they were faking it, they were lying, they were not authentic.
Absolutely. And this is, I'm challenging myself to show up differently, because if I am unwilling to talk about my wounds, then how can I present to you healing? I cannot present a tool for healing if I'm not willing to bear my wounds before you. What's the most powerful symbolism we'll ever have is the symbolism of Yeshua in the scriptures, where he says to the doubter in Thomas, okay, I understand you have some questions about the situation, but I want you to take your hands and place them in the holes of my hand, so I can assure you that I've been through some stuff and I can help you out of this place. See, we all have a stigmata moment. We all have a moment where we've been crucified by something in our past. We've all had a moment where things have spiraled out of control and we've unraveled, we've deteriorated. But the deterioration isn't necessarily to destroy you. It's to reveal you. Rumi says that the cracks in you is where the light comes out.
But also to rebuild you.
Absolutely.
And that is what, as obviously expertise in transformation on individual, team, and organizational level, very few, specifically modern time, with the speed, with instant gratification, with outer, that is so easy to mask inner, right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Very few people consciously chose and decide that. But it's amazing when you decide a journey and start a journey and stay with a journey. What insane results are there? How much you self-discover, who do you became, and how amazing impact, influence naturally occurs as a result of it.
Absolutely. Oh, I love that. I love that statement. I've found that anytime you find yourself built in a place, always be grateful for what broke you down. Always be grateful for that thing that unraveled you. Like you hit it right on the head. The buildup is everything, but you don't build up from high up and down. You don't build a skyscraper from the top down. You build it from the bottom up, which means you got to level things out. You got to mess with the grade of the land. You got to make sure that everything is everything is at homeostasis first before you start laying pouring concrete in the foundation, because at that point, the concretization of it all is how the building is going to settle. If the foundation is unleveled, if it's uncured, if the cement is uncured, then you'll have a faulty structure. You won't be settled, and you'll easily topple over at the most. A grain of salt will tip the scale for you. You won't be able to show up, like you said, in the meeting room and the bedroom. You won't be able to show up in these places and not be and be able to be strong, and be able to be authentic, and be empathetic if it's necessary. Whatever those tool sets and skill sets need to happen in those places, you want to be able to show up in a way that says, my foundation is firm in who I am, and I'm going to show up in the most authentic way possible, because I know that I have been unraveled to the point of being built up to stand here and be firm in it.
I love that. And then again, for everybody watching and listening, and specifically the ones that are now seeing magnitude of unraveling during COVID that just triggered what was already beneath the surface. We see that in families, we see that with individuals, in the business, with the companies, right?
Mm-hmm.
All of those foundations, all things that we will advocate and then promote with the vision, with the statement, with the mission, what we're all about, what we value. But in reality, what we do on a daily basis was huge disjoint, disconnected elements that really could not really bring others to cheer, to support, and be part of it.
Right.
Now we're seeing
Absolutely.
massive exodus of talent from toxic organization, because the level of toxicity came to such a pivotal moment that people start realizing, if I continue, I'm going to die.
Yeah.
If I continue one more day being around this angry, frustrated, people that are acting out, misbehaving, I don't know if I can make it. And then on top of it, if you don't have stability at home, a lot of people faced so much despair. And of course, then despair and a worse form of depression start kicking in.
Absolutely.
And as you know, Nathaniel, right now we're seeing interesting trends that are happening not only with adults, but also with the youth.
Yeah.
They have the highest percentage of teenagers committing suicide because they don't feel understood, supported, isolated, and parents, frankly, don't know how to handle them.
Right.
Because they don't know how to handle themselves, right?
Right. There you go.
Great father. How can you be a great father and role model when you, as they say, still figuring out the basics, essentials? What are you then modeling to those teenagers that are really, really having a hard time, right?
Yeah.
The other thing is also we've seen a lot happening with 55 to 65 adults, right? Specifically, actually male. And a lot of times people think, oh yeah, those are the veterans, but not necessarily, not just because they experience severe level of trauma in combat, that automatically means those are the number one and most targeted group that will do such a thing. It is also all those executives and leaders that had always so much going on and that could get away with so much in the past that build up to the point that are having severe addiction, severe lashing and misbehavior, and now being called out as a predators, either sexually, emotionally, and so many levels, because they don't know now how to change, because for so long they got away with that type of behavior.
Right. Absolutely. It's the idea of everyone needs to learn the art of fasting. And it's not just about doing away with food. What fasting is for, and the way I understand it and the way I do it within my own life, is that you do away with the thing that you say you can't live without. Whatever that thing is that you say, I don't care if you're a leader in an organization or just a husband going to work, to a blue collar man or a female going to work every day. It doesn't matter. Whatever that thing is that you say, well, I can't do that. I can't live without that. I need this in order to function. You're addicted to something and it's controlling you, and it's a drug, and you need to let go of it for a season, just long enough so that you lose the taste for it. And once the taste is gone, watch what happens to your life and watch what replaces it, because it's very essential that you be willing to remove the thing that you're addicted to, but then replace it with something that's more productive, so it pushes you forward.
And then not allowing yourself to feel controlled by it, so that all those external factors that we see, what we want instant feel good, either is drug, other is chocolate, whatever, coffee,
whatever it is,
exactly, could be wide range of it. And we have a really great question here from Joseph. He was talking about EMDR and techniques in treating and childhood trauma. That is one of the many methods that is being used in psychology for a long time, Joseph. So you're spot on, and it's a great, yes, both of us are familiar with that. But works in different ways with children versus adults.
Right.
Childhood drama that have been perpetuated for decades, like in Nathaniel case, are requiring much more substantial components of it. And we also have in here Tarja commenting, thank you, Tarja, and with her background in psychology. So it's such a great way to hear her voice as well, coming all the way from Europe and staying with us this evening to be part of it, because we're always looking and trying to get a pulse of the world, right? What's going on in the world, because we live in global economy. And all the factors, even though we feel that we're remote, affect us. I remember the summer fires were in California and other parts of the country. And we didn't have a fire in Colorado at that time, but the smoke that came and stayed in the valley, we were voted for a couple of consecutive days as the most polluted city in the world.
Wow.
And when you think about it, how removed we are from California or states, yet the wind, the factors that affected us to get us in that situation. And a lot of times we think it's not me, it's them, I'm okay. But then again, what are we exposed to also affects who is in our circle, who believes in us, who is our cheerleader, right?
There you go. That's so true. This is so good. I had the opportunity to sit and speak with someone who was suicidal right as COVID, when the pandemic kind of hammered down on us, on the states, on many countries across the globe. And I was listening to her story, and I was asking myself this question while I was, listening. Okay, so who else is this story affecting? Like, who else is this affecting? And what secondhand smoke has she inhaled that made her believe that ending it was the answer? Like, what story did she, what thing did she inhale? Like you just talked about that. Colorado experienced the residual from an event that was miles away, hundreds of miles away. And you didn't have to be in the fire to be a part of the story of the fire happening. So our stories, our events, leadership, I don't care if you're a leader, if you're a parent, or just a child going to school, everything how you're engaging the world is affecting someone, because you're writing a story and someone has to play those characters. Someone is in there to experience what you're experiencing, and they're experiencing the secondhand smoke of what you've lit, what you've ignited in yourself, in your environment. So you're affecting that sphere of influence. So a leader goes to the boardroom and he brings the pain from home in the boardroom. So if he's losing control at home, or if she's losing control at home, then she shows up, or he shows up in the meeting room with this facade of control, when there's really this inferiority complex that's happening. And then the secondhand smoke gets filling in the room, and people are feeling like, well, I don't feel like he really cares about what we think, or I don't feel like she really cares about how I feel about this, or they don't care about my family, and all these things. Because it's not that they don't care, it's that they don't see it. The smoke is clouding the room.
They don't see the things that the pain is bleeding through. They don't see how much of that energy is showing up. They don't see how they're being perceived. And a lot of times that's where people overuse their power.
Every time.
Where they also mistreat other people. Where they're lashing, where they're using their pain as a tool to actually put others down. And right now we see so many of those dynamics. And anger is one of the most destructive ones, right? Because it triggers every single one of us on this planet are being exposed for variations and different types of inflicted anger upon us. For wrong or right reason. And in reality, even if we did deserve punishment, we don't deserve anger, we don't deserve physical abuse, we deserve opportunity to discuss, to learn from it. And just the way people are doing, you're spot on, it's not a room anymore. And that is also what's not tolerated any longer, right? Because not only brings and re-traumatize other individuals, but shuts people down. Creativity, the trust, the productivity, desire to engage, desire to really extend compassion towards those
Right.
people.
Right.
And I always say, because I work with so much of those destructive behaviors for so long,
Mhm.
it's a cry for help,
It,
even though it is
right on
so
the money.
difficult to accept that. Behind is very scared, vulnerable, and horrible, horrible pain individual
Hmm.
that also requires recognition
Absolutely.
and understanding, compassion, and helping hand to change the script around.
There you go.
It's like you did this on your own,
I
right?
did. I did. Well, I say on my own because I was the most responsible for it, but with the help of the tools that I was exposed to, I read a lot of books and I watched a lot of, seminars and listened to a lot. And then I have my own coach who's able to speak into things and say, "Hey, man, snap out of it. That's not you." And I had to. The more you engage in personal development, the more personal developed you become, and the more you're willing and not afraid to dive into those inferior places. I just came off of a 14-day fast. I fasted for 14 days. I did not eat any other foods except for raw spirulina. I took 2 spoonfuls per 3 times a day, put it in water and drank it, and that was my meal. And what I found out about Nathaniel within the last 14 days was worth thousands of years of information. Because I said this in a previous conversation. I said all of us are showing up in the moment, but we're not isolated from every year, every event that has happened in our DNA for the past 250,000 years of human history. All of it, the entire story of it, is sitting in the room with you. And you have the responsibility in the moment to process every last event in whatever way that's possible, whatever thing that didn't get resolved, whatever that thing is. And nowadays, you've got CEOs going to ayahuasca ceremonies to deal with those inner issues because they know that if they don't deal with it, it's gonna cause them to self-destruct. Well, that's what came up. Those things that came up in me was like, wait a minute, you stuffed this frustration for a long time. Now you've got to bring things back to equilibrium. And something that Jordan Peterson said that kind of triggered something for me. He said, men need to become monsters and then learn to tame that beast. And during the 14 days, I got reintroduced to the beast in Nathaniel. And not that I was just angry at everything. It's like, man, I'm really frustrated emotionally. Why am I so upset? Why does it feel like something is like, ugh? And I was like, I'm being calibrated. This calibration thing is happening, and I am understanding now that it's necessary, male or female, to deal with the darkness in a way that looks like the yin and yang symbol, where the darkness and light have a space to exist among one another and is the backdrops for each thing to have its own place to express and be articulate in it. So I must be as articulate as a man of peace as I am as a man of war, and be ready in whatever situation to deal in that capacity. That's why you study martial arts. You study martial arts not so you can go out here starting fights, so that you learn how to respond to experiences that come to transgress your boundaries. Go ahead, Izabela.
That is so powerful, and I'm so glad you touched on, because I wanted to go and dive a little bit deeper, if we may, because this is a very interesting connection, right? Because as you know, I was writing the blog, an actual article for Forbes about legacy DNA that it's
Hmm.
coming up specifically just addressing legacy,
Hmm.
but ultimately starts with DNA that we have on individual level, and
Hmm.
that it's not only detoxing from toxins, but as you said, it's opportunity to detox of all the baggage and everything you hold, and as you said, unleash your internal power
Hmm.
in a ways that you don't even know, and then see how powerful you are. But then also
Absolutely.
how you self-regulate, how you build that emotional capacity, so you're not getting triggered, so
Hmm.
you're not projecting old story or similar story because of the relationships or whatever might be
Right.
scenario. So it's very interesting. I had a conversation with multiple doctors recently, and what we're looking at is interesting trends, right? We have our own individual DNA
Hmm.
that, with exposure to, let's say, unprotected sex or too many partners, which a lot of people are actually more sex addicts than they're willing to admit.
Yeah.
Like, you constantly altering that. You're taking on others people's pain, and you're
Hmm.
taking on others people's toxicity too.
Hmm. Hmm.
That people also don't realize how that is important. Then as an
Absolutely.
individual, however you are, you're in DNA that is actually showing up, even though you may not have a that level of contact, but then you bring in that to the team dynamics,
Mm-hmm.
because
Mm-hmm.
that is how you show up. That is
Right.
what your triggers are. That's your moodiness. That's your whatever might be the case, right?
Right.
And then also the level of separations. Sometimes people create artificial separation because of the fear, but also sense of self-importance.
Mm-hmm.
And as a result, it's hard to connect. It's hard to collaborate. It's hard
Yeah.
to actually live around that person. And
Yeah.
a lot of people feel like in the past they live with their coworkers because they spend so much time with them, and
Yep.
and often more time
Than with their families.
than families. And when they do come, they come very drained, exhausted, and literally nothing anymore else to give, because these energetic pools will just suck life out of them.
Yeah,
That's why
absolutely.
certain things don't succeed. Even like I always studies like organizational DNA now, in addition to team DNA, why we have so many insanely intelligent individuals with so much skill set, yet why things are failing, why
Mm-hmm.
projects are failing,
Mm-hmm.
where the issue is.
Mm-hmm.
Can we look at from very true artistic lens where we see the reality of it?
Yeah. Yeah.
Because we are tolerating all of those types of behavior, and on top of it, sabotage and killing creativity, right?
Yeah.
Killing the room for that fresh air,
Absolutely.
collaboration,
Exactly.
for spontaneity, to curiosity.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
And
I love it.
self-discovery and discovery of others. And ultimately, that really leads to that legacy aspects of it and DNA of that, which is another conversation. But I just want to say, you are so spot on that everything starts with you.
It does. It starts and ends with us. It started like nobody else. Here's the thing. I stopped believing in or subscribing to an idea that I needed to wait around for someone to come and save me. And unfortunately, a lot of the more prominent religious belief systems are pushing this notion that, hey, just wait it out because salvation is on the way. And like, you mean I'm supposed to just wait for somebody to do something for me, and I'm responsible for this thing? That's a very childish way to engage the world in a way that says, well, everybody else was responsible for why I am where I am. Absolutely not. I regret to inform you, listeners, that no one is coming to save you. I'm sorry, I got to do it, but no one's coming to save you. It's not happening. You are responsible for where you are. We are responsible for where we are. And if you want to change, guess who's got to do it? The pen is in your hand. When I spoke to that woman about how she was ready to end her life, when she spoke, her face was white as paper. She was ready to be done. She had no color, no smile. Her hair was unraveled. Everything about her looked like a corpse. But when I was able to ignite in her the author, when I made her recognize, I said, what I said to her as I clapped when she told me what she was going to do, I said, congratulations. You're an amazing storyteller. Now let's write a new one. And what I did was I handed her a pen. She realized, like, wait a minute, I can change this story. I said, absolutely, you can change the story. This is not your story. You don't have to choose this. You can
This is not the ending.
It's not the end.
Your end. Exactly.
You can choose. Exactly. Here's a pen, right? Here's a pen. Write another chapter and keep writing the chapter. Keep writing the book until the ending that you want starts to manifest itself through you. You're it. Life is happening not just for you, but it's happening from you. You are the quantum observer of reality. What that means is, as light collapses and quantum material, what it does is it appears and disappears. And what it's looking for is agreement for why it should be there. So scientists have discovered that the universe gives you more of what you're looking for. So the more you discover, the more you look for, the more what's being discovered shows up in the world. So if you're looking for something to annihilate you, you'll find more reasons to be annihilated. But if you're looking for a reason to live, I guarantee you won't look for a savior, because you'll find a reason to live, and you'll keep finding it, because quantum mechanics and quantum principles say that if you keep looking for me in this way, if you keep looking for you, it's mirroring you. If you keep looking for you in a way that shows up to live, more to live will show up. Go ahead,
I
Izabela.
love it. I absolutely love it. And I love that passion and I love that curiosity, because I always remember, and I capture that in many of my conversations, that I look at the world with curiosity of a 5 years old girl that I once knew. And even though horrible events, a million reasons to look at through the different way, I is like, and they're always like, Izabela, based on what you've been through, how you can still be so optimistic, so positive. And it's like, those experiences taught me millions of lessons and they gave me the wisdom, but they're not stopping what of the trajectory of the process of what I'm thinking at the moment. And we're
Right.
having some really great questions here. How is
Yeah, let's do it.
entering into your ability of self-limiting thoughts and stories? And Joseph, you spot on. We have to, right? Because just because we experience and we're exposed to them, we don't stay in that environment, right?
Right.
We have
Right.
a choice to do rewrite the script, exactly what just Nathaniel said, and that's what he did after so long. And if he can do it
Yeah.
for something that was being part of his DNA, part of his shame and guilt, and part of his own insecurities, and part of his anger, and anger is collective because you didn't have a chance to voice it,
Express.
to
Exactly.
express it. Every time we cannot express, I remember when I was exposed to torture and genocide and war and ethnic cleansing in my country, I could not express it, and I built anger, and I just saw it how easy it's to get out of the control. And
Yeah.
I knew then and then, this is not me. I'm
Yeah.
better than that. This is not what my dad taught me. This is not how my grandma raised me. This is not who I am. And I
Absolutely.
cannot do this to them.
Right.
If I would do this to me, because I cannot do this to them, I made my promise. And I
Yeah.
remember why they were giving me these early packs, no matter what happens in life, you're gonna do X, Y, and Z. And I'm like, why are they telling me? When you're 5 and 6-year-old, you don't
Yeah.
have no idea
Right.
what they're
Right.
actually preparing you for,
Yeah, yeah,
right?
absolutely, absolutely. You're a seed, and unfortunately, the blueprint is there. You just have to be realized. That's the beauty. It's you get planted in the dark, right? The beauty of life is that we're all planted in the dark. It's that all of us, if you're a seed, if you're in a space, you were planted in the dark, and you've got to navigate the dark and establish roots in the dark. All the things that happen to a plant that make it solid, to make it what it should be, isn't what comes out of the ground. It's what it does and how it subscribes to the darkness and how it masters. You've got to master the dark places first before you show yourself fruitful in the light. And what you're talking about is maybe seeing the genocide and seeing the ethnic cleansing and all the things that have happened. Like, so many things are traumatic experiences that are in our cultural DNA that are there. These are dark places, and they're necessary for us to be fruitful. No tree without roots is going to be fruitful. As a matter of fact, you won't have a tree. You put a seed in the ground and you keep uprooting it to see if it actually establishes roots, and watch how long it takes for it to be fruitful. The key here is that you plant it and you forget it and you water it. You keep it there. You keep the climate well. You keep the soil damp enough. You let it stress. I learned something from a guy that works here on our farm. He's an older gentleman, about 80 years old. And he says, you got to let the tree stress itself out so it'll dig itself deeper into the ground to find water. Stress
Wow.
initiates root growth so that the
Or
roots,
problem or difficulty
boom,
to be resourceful, to think outside of the box, to
boom.
find different ways instead of following everybody else and thinking linearly, or
There you go.
expecting that
There you go.
everybody's journey should be the same. So if
There
I
you
didn't
go.
do certain things by certain age, I'm either failing, I'm a loser, I'm not worthy, or whatever stories we're telling, or just because my boss is mistreating me and because he doesn't see the value, or he actually sees the value but pushes the value down
Right.
because he doesn't want to give you the power back, right? Or
Right.
power play. We see all these very, very interesting intricacies around exactly that.
Yeah.
Until we really realize self-worth, right? We will
Yeah.
never know what we're capable of. And I love what Taria said. And Taria, by the way, I just wanted to tell you, you are invited to be a next guest on this a series before end of the year, sweetheart. I cannot wait to have you also to share your words of wisdom. And I love what you just said, how important to think to include in our in-group on these bases, trying to be brought into a circle of in-group of the peace of powerful people, yes, and compassionate people, and demonstrate what that looks like. Because when we have that inner circle, we're much more stronger, we're much more capable, and we can do so much. We're
Yeah.
unstoppable.
Absolutely.
That's
Absolutely.
why people like Nathaniel, that's why every single guest in this series, guys, the limited edition for this time of the year when people struggle the most, specifically United States, of
Yeah.
course in other parts of the world,
Yeah.
when fragmented, broken families, when domestic violence, abuse, a lot of incapabilities to really deal, or energy or right ways to solve these complex issues, when people shut down, when male feel like they cannot show the vulnerability, where
Right.
there's so much is happening, right?
Yeah.
We
Yeah.
have the opportunity to show what is possible and change the script. And I love what Nathaniel did to help to save his friend to not commit suicide, to help her to rewrite her story.
Right.
He rewrote his own story to save himself in order to save his family.
Absolutely. We have the tools, Izabela. The tool is we come with the entire blueprint. As a matter of fact, there is no recognition of anything without us here. Like there, I'm looking at Joseph's question, and he talked about how do you rewrite that story, and do I believe in a higher power? I believe in a creator of everything, and that I believe that creator is in everything. Not that I'm believing in some being somewhere sitting on some throne in some space and time dimension. What I believe is that we are all an expression of said creator. That means that there is no realization of creator without us being here to tell the stories of its being, its happening. We are here as conduits for
Yeah.
creator to happen. Because the most powerful thing I ever read is in Genesis, where it says that the spirit of Elohim was walking in the garden with Adam. And it's one of those things that's kind of passed over in a lot of sectors, because nobody wants to tackle things from a really deep, heavy word study. And I did a word study on it. It actually says walk there is not thing. The word walk there means to happen. So the creator was not just walking with Adam, the creator was happening as Adam in the garden. So that puts a whole different light, because we're looking for some other thing somewhere, when the thing we're looking for is looking at us in the mirror. We are the creators, the destroyers, the organizers of our reality. The God, the generator, organizer, destroyer of reality, is sitting in your seat. It's in your car driving. It's in the mirror putting on makeup. It's in the shower. It's all us. We create the reality, and then we rope people in to experience it with us. So we have families, and we have friends, and we have work colleagues, and constituents in politics, or whatever that thing is. It's all a part of a ploy, a plot. That's why it's called employment. Ploy, plot. You're within a play. You're playing a part in someone's story. So we're all living this thing out, and the creator is doing it with us, as us, in us, as a responsible participant in the universe.
And through us and all the expressions, because all of us, I believe strongly, came here with a specific purpose, right?
Right.
That's why so much people are awakening to the fact, am I fulfilling my destiny? What's
Right.
one destined to do? Am I on the right trajectory? What I want to be known for?
Right.
What I wanted to be my legacy? What I wanted to be recognized for? What I wanted to do while I can? And right now I'm pushing them forward, and more elements that a lot of times people would think, what happens when we're passed away, and how we're going to be remembered, and what we accomplished through whatever material things, or whatever might be the case. The reality is, right now we can live our own legacies as we are still alive, and very much so young and capable and able. Because why so important? Because that is reflection that we are doing the right thing.
Right.
That we're
Right.
doing exactly what we're meant to be, what's our
Absolutely.
purpose, what's our goal, and how
Absolutely.
we are then helping and impacting others.
Absolutely.
And for everybody on LinkedIn that is watching, listening, that is sharing with their colleagues, that is going to be also engaging in, I know many of you also reach, and I know that this series became very popular, even though it's third episode, and based on comments and feedback that I received, because it's needed. We're addressing elephants right now.
Right.
That so many organizations gloss over, because they go right away to the business. They
That's
go
right.
to the bottom line. They go
Right.
to the financials. And we understand that. But if we create the room and not suffocate opportunity to treat people, as
Right.
living human beings,
Right. Right.
and
Right.
let them be in an environment that they can be ultimately the best
Absolutely.
versions of themselves.
Boom. Right on the money.
Everything else will follow.
Sure will.
If
Sure
we
will.
treat them with dignity, if we treat them with the respect, we can't anymore just because of title and position demand that type of treatment,
Right.
but yet not extend and give it back to the others. That doesn't
Absolutely.
work that way.
That's absolutely. Dr. Steve Young says if agreement is the currency for relationship in your business, then innovation is in trouble. And innovation requires that you be in this, you hold the space for humans to interact. It's an inclusive word. It literally suggests that you don't have to have all the answers. You don't show up as, hey, I have the last word, so no one gets to say anything. No, what that means is if I'm going to create an inclusive and diverse environment in my business and workplace, it's going to require that I shut up and I allow people to be people, because you don't have an organization otherwise. You
Yeah.
don't have there's no corporation without people. And I said this to a guy who was looking for some consulting a couple years ago, and he was like, well, we're kind of just looking for, an organizational thing. I said, well, you don't do that without people. And if you don't develop the people now, then you can forget about the organization. And that probably was the best consulting he had ever had in his entire life.
I bet, and something that's going to stay with him for the rest of his life, because reality is this. Why we're having a hard time as a society to really look at the true problem and true cause of issue
Mm-hmm.
and then address it.
Absolutely.
And why we're dancing around the elephants that are suffocating us and killing everything that we actually need in order to succeed.
Absolutely.
And if that is the bottom line we desire, what is prerequisite for the bottom line to consistently provide and give and support and justify existence of every business?
Mm-hmm.
If
Mm-hmm.
we're here to exist and we want to persist in that existence,
Mm-hmm.
why we're doing that? What is the purpose, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And it's not just being conscious, self-conscious, and consciously driven, and social, economically, politically, environmentally. It's more than that. What's the substance? What's the essence? What are we hiding behind all these artificial missions and visions, the values?
Mm-hmm.
If we don't see evidence of the value within the individual that is reinforcing it,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
why we're blatantly shaming ourselves by those actions and everybody else, why we're undermining others people's intelligence,
Yeah. And
why
that's
we're
oh my
allowing
God.
that the outdated framework that doesn't have nothing to do with the leadership
Absolutely.
and doesn't have nothing to do to servitude and greater good.
You just hit it on the head. You just said it. That's the prerequisite. Learning how to serve. Service to others is what we get rewarded on. Earl Nightingale says it best. He says, our reward in life is in direct correlation to our contribution, our service. So you only get what you earn through service. So you don't demand respect. You earn respect by serving others. And if you're going to lead anybody, you lead first through serving others. It doesn't happen any other way. And the two key points in serving is, number one, you got to be authentic and relatable. You got to get involved. Be concerned. The word concern is too Latin. It's a Latin compound word. Concerne. It means to be with the sifting. You got to sift life with the people you want to serve. You got to get into their stuff. Sometimes you got to hear some of the stuff that's going on at home, so you can know how to shift what's going on in the workplace. Maybe it's too much responsibility at the moment because it's triggering some things, and they're not able to show up at their best self. It's okay. You can help that as a leader, right? If you're serving well, be authentic, be involved, be empathetic, right? Be in the space with them. Be empathetic. Feel what it feels like. Tap into your own experiences and be a part of that. And then number two, be accountable and be responsible. You can't lead anyone that you're not responsible to. Okay. If you're a leader, if you're a parent, if you're doing anything that puts you in a position where people are looking at you as the example, you are responsible to them. And therefore, you've got to be in that space. You got to fill that void, whatever that thing is, and be accountable to them. Really be in the sauce with them, because you can't lead them otherwise. Go ahead, Izabela.
That is so brilliant, and I loved where this direction, where this conversation took a direction, and where it was going, and where it is at the moment. Because I want to take just a quick moment again, because what we started is with a concept of healing invisible wounds, addressing those huge elephants in the rooms that we sometimes suffocate ourselves in.
Mhm.
But then when we start taking action and then really showing and then showing up differently,
Yeah.
what that creates and how amazing opportunities for others, for us to be seen, to
Absolutely.
eliminate that energy, to eliminate that huge, overwhelming, vast, draining, exhausting, toxic, whatever you want to
Mhm.
call it. And then to really let our light shine, and then for us to shine, to be the best versions of ourselves. Why it's so important?
Absolutely.
Again, Nathaniel said it powerfully. It's our responsibility. It's
Yeah.
nobody's else.
Yep.
If you don't have a desire and goal, then maybe you should revisit what you then can do so you can minimally negatively impact others, and to keep that toxicity contained.
Right. Right.
That, because that also, it's a level of responsibility. Dwell
Absolutely.
in silence, or dwell in an environment where you are then not perpetuating and imposing the pain on others. So
Yeah.
the point you have when will be either too much pain, or just simply, whatever outcome you desire to be. But for
Right.
the trajectory of success, for trajectory to all of this, what we're seeing right now, how anger, how blame, how ridicule, how abuse, emotional, mental, physical, sexual, spiritual,
Mm-hmm.
organizational, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It's really not anymore something that anybody has an appetite
Mm-hmm.
to be exposed to.
Yeah.
Seeing trends in working environments, people leaving jobs.
Yeah.
I'm seeing broken human resource channels. I'm seeing
Oh
jobs
my gosh.
posted, and I'm seeing insane talent. I'm even looking at some things I was interested in pursuing. The way I was treated from some of the companies and conversations with human resource people and team. I'm like, what are you guys thinking?
Right.
What are you guys thinking? Seriously, like, do you
Right.
don't think that anybody is not having conversations after these experiences?
Right.
Do you
Right.
guys don't think that people will not tell their friends and colleagues from what to steer away?
Absolutely.
Do you understand that money is one of the other 10 or 15 factors, that your brand is as valuable as the level of people that are leading your organization,
Yep. Yep.
the people you surrender yourself with,
Yep.
the partnerships,
Yeah.
that innovative efforts, home,
Yeah.
husbands, wives relationship, romantic pursuits,
Yeah.
children,
Yeah.
all of those things are
It's all a factor.
have the same tapestry,
It's all a
same
factor.
lens, same type of
Yeah.
being.
Yeah. That's so good. If what if for a moment, if you're a leader, or if you're any type of organization leader, someone that's other people are looking to set the example and set order. What if for a moment you initiated what children do and play? The reason why I say that is because when we think of a play, we think of something that entertains us, that comes in and arrests us for a moment in time to experience something that we otherwise would not have experienced if we had not said yes to participate in the moment. And if every last one of these jobs out here, whether it's a gym, whether it's a grocery store or a department store or whatever that thing is, it's employment, as I said before, it's in a play. And what if the interview point process is that you're auditioning to be a part of it, and some people that work for them and they have a good rapport? Well, you only go to movies that have good reviews, right? You only go to plays on Broadway that have good reviews. Oh, so and so is acting in this play, I'm going to go here because they have the type of people that set the example that supports what I believe. It supports my values, and your values or your behavioral blueprints. It's how you will behave in business and in life. So whatever those values are, that's what you'll gravitate towards. So if your values are solid and they're rooted in human development and things of that nature, you'll find things that will support those values. Well, what if we just initiated play in the places, or only audition as an actor or actress in
Yes.
the plays that you want to be a part of?
Thank you for listening to Legacy Leader Show. If you enjoyed the content and had a positive experience, then please leave us a positive rating. In addition, Leave us a positive review whenever you are listening on whatever platform that might be. Make sure your friends and family also know about the benefit and value that we provide and what we have to offer. Cheers.